This is the PA Startup Podcast, episode number 3. This is the PA Startup Podcast, where we help pre-PA students, current PA students, and new grads start their careers as physician assistants. I'm your host, Chris Darst. We are glad you're here. Hey guys, welcome back to the PA Startup Podcast. So glad you're here. And today we are talking about something that might not be the most riveting thing at first glance, but I can't express enough how important today's topic is. We are talking about resumes and cover letters today. I get it, right? Not crazy, not stories from trauma. It's not, 10 tips on how to XYZ. But what this is a skill that you have to develop and you have to work on it. And this isn't something you throw together and just throw it out there. You have to be deliberate in what you're doing, and you have to work with a purpose. So we're going to talk about both resumes, or curriculum vitae, as they're called, or CVs. And we're going to talk about cover letters as well, because they go hand in hand. I just lectured at a PA school, and one of the questions was, when should we give our resume to our preceptors? Because I had told them, I said, make sure you have a resume when you go out on rotations, and give one to every single preceptor. Now, give it to them at the end of the rotation after you've established a rapport, but give them one, because you never know who's going to be out there. So this is important to do. Even if you're in school and you haven't started rotations yet, start working on it now. So when you hit the ground running, you're ready to go. Now, if you're a pre-PA student, bookmark this episode and definitely come back to it. You're going to want to start working on this in your first year of PA school so that it's ready by the time you hit rotations. Okay, let's get into it. So resumes. A resume is, as you know, a 1 to 2 page document that kind of shows what your qualifications are for a job, right? Kind of boring, but you can totally use it to your advantage. Now, whether it's 1 or 2 pages, we'll talk about kind of here in the end, but use as much space as you need to get the point across. Don't use filler, though, and we'll hit this in a couple different sections here, but filler is going to look and it's going to sound an alarm. It's going to send up a flag. So don't use a bunch of filler just to make it longer. But if you do, in fact, have enough information that you need to fill it, let's say for some reason you've published a lot of papers, your undergraduate microbiology class, you did a bunch of research and you're named in a bunch of articles that you want to put in there, that's great. Go ahead and do that. That's not filler. But if you talk paragraphs about your EMT experience for 3 months while you worked for an ambulance company, well, don't pad with that, okay? So a resume is just that. It's just the qualifications you have for the job, but you have to tailor it to your audience. And if you're a student, obviously you're going to be in school and you're going to have to portray that, but then you're also going to use it in such a way that if you're compared against other people who are also students, that you come out on top, okay? So real quick, we just need a couple sections here. Obviously, at the top of the resume, you're going to have your name, address, phone number, and email. So first things first, let's talk about your contact information. These days, cell phones, it doesn't really matter what area code your resume has on it. Even your address, it doesn't matter if it's your temporary address, your parents' address. That part doesn't matter. What does matter is your email address. I have seen some extremely unprofessional email addresses come across in a resume. Email's free, right? So go sign up for one that's your name, chris.darst@whatever.com. Or you can come up with something that is professional. So if you're using one that's, say, an acronym or something that's a nickname you had in high school or something like that when you got it, go ahead and start a new account that's your professional email account. You don't have to get rid of the old one, but go ahead and use the new account for all professional interactions. I actually had a friend in college. She was great, wonderful person, but her email was jackmonkeynuts@somewebsite.com. Hilarious, right? Like, every time I saw it, I kind of laughed to myself. But that is not what you want on your resume. Because as a hiring manager, I don't want to say, hey, this person here is a great candidate. We need to reach out to him. And then tell HR, hey, could you shoot an email over to jackmonkeynuts at Gmail and see if they can meet with us? Like, no, we'll have a good laugh about it. I'll tell you that much. But come on, we can have a little bit more professional outlook. So make sure your email is professional. Okay, so let's go through and we'll talk about the sections first, and then we'll come back and fill each part in. So basically, there's 4 main sections you need. So jot this down. If you're driving in the car, don't jot it down. But these are the 4 sections that you need. You need the education section first, then your rotations, then your experience. The number 4 is affiliations. You could have a 5th one. I'll put an asterisk kind of on this. You could put personal information if you want, if there's something that you want to share. If you want to talk about your spouse and your kids, that's fine. If you want to talk about any sort of personal information that you think would be helpful, by all means, you could put it in there. But for the most part, you need those 4 main categories. All right, now the education section, we're gonna start off with our PA degree because that's why we're here. We're trying to get a PA job, so we're gonna lead with your master's degree in whatever your school calls it. Mine is a master's in physician assistant studies. So I would type the whole thing out. Don't abbreviate. Say master's of physician assistant studies or whatever, the dates that you attended and the school you went to. Now, there's not a focus or like an area, like a major or a minor with PA schools. So you can leave that part off for this. But then on the next line, you want to take a space, go down. You want to do your bachelor's degree. So bachelor's of science or bachelor of arts, whatever your bachelor's degree is in, the dates you attended, what school you went to, and then your majors and minors. Now, this is an interesting part because if you majored in, let's say, athletic training, or something that lends itself to your future job. Maybe you're applying for orthopedics and you were an athletic trainer before. That's awesome. So definitely put that on there. If you're a nutrition major or an exercise science major or whatever it is, if it's something different than the typical biology or something like that, then definitely put it on there. And biology is good too. It definitely shows that you know your coursework and things like that. But this is one spot that you could maybe stand out if you don't have kind of the mainstream degrees. Okay, so don't worry about high school. Don't worry about anything else. If you do happen to have some other kind of degree, like you have your EMT license or you have an LPN or you have you are a respiratory therapist, then that's great. Put that on there too. So, but start master's first, bachelor second, and then any other degrees to follow. Okay, moving on. So we've got rotations. Now, there's a little caveat here. This is going to be different whether you're applying for jobs in the same place that you did your rotations or you did your rotations in one place and you're applying for a job elsewhere, and I'll explain why. For those of you that are applying for jobs where you did your rotations, you need to list your rotation and your preceptor. And that's important because medical communities within like a city are very small. I might not know everybody in town. They might not know me, but I'd probably recognize their name. And if I don't know them, I bet I know someone who does. So if I see on your resume that you did a neurosurgery rotation with Corlin over at the neurosurgery place around town, which that's a real place. Hey, Corlin, how you doing? If I see that you did a rotation with him, I'm going to call Corlin and be like, hey, Corlin, what did you think of Sally? How was she as a student? How was she in the operating room? How was she with patients? We're going to have a conversation about it. And if I see an acquaintance's name on your resume, that's going to give you a leg up over somebody else that maybe has rotated with people I don't know because I have a personal connection. Something links us together. So definitely put your preceptors' names on there. Now, the caveat is if you're applying to somewhere outside of where you did your rotations, don't worry about this part. Still put your rotations, but don't worry so much about the preceptor because nobody knows anyone in Nevada if you're going to apply for a job in New York City, right? The medical community is small, but it's not that small. So don't worry about the names on there, especially if you're hurting for space. Now, the order of the rotations is important, and I would encourage you to have a couple copies of your resume and make sure you label them so you remember the difference between them. But if you're applying for pediatrics, put that rotation first. Even if it wasn't chronologically your first rotation that you did, put that first. Put it at the top. If you're doing orthopedics, put that one at the top. If you're doing neurosurgery, put that one at the top. If you're doing dermatology, do you get my drift? Lead with that one and have maybe even other parts of your resume point to other areas that would support you in that specialty. So I had like a general one and then I had a surgical one. So I applied for a lot of jobs just actually to practice the application process, to refine how I wrote cover letters, to see if I got any calls. And so I did have a couple different versions that I could send out, and it was very helpful, actually. So, okay, so we got the rotations covered. You want the preceptors listed if you're in town. Don't worry about it if they're out of town. And then organize your rotations to serve your purpose of applying. Okay, moving on, we've got experience. So what experience do you have? What jobs have you worked? What have you done in the past that prepares you for this job that you're applying for? Now, most of the time, we're going to lead with our medical experience, our medical related stuff. Like if you worked as an EMT, if you were a phlebotomist, if you were a pharmacy technician, if you were an EKG technician, any kind of job like that that gives you patient contact is going to be the one you want to lead with. Obviously, we all had to have so many hours to get into school of patient contact, but definitely put it in there first, and don't be afraid to be honest about what your job duties were. Now, this is one area that people try to beef up all the time, and they put subjective information in there that shouldn't be there. Let's say you worked as a CNA at a nursing home. You need to put your actual job duties, which was maybe you had something to do with medications, or maybe you were a patient transporter, or maybe I don't know what your job was, but make sure you limit it to what the job is. If you write, provided compassionate and caring care to every resident, treating them like family, okay, you're totally trying to beef this up a little bit. That's not your job title. What does your job description say? If you're a phlebotomist, then you're responsible for obtaining specimens and venipuncture and, order requisition or whatever you want to put on there. I'm not going to say that I flawlessly cannulated the cephalic vein with a needle 17 times a day. Like, come on, that's no good. So it is very poetic, and if you put that, way to go, way to be creative, but this isn't the place to be creative. There is, however, a place to be somewhat creative in your cover letter, and we'll get to that here in just a second. All right, so medical related experience first. Other experience you can definitely put on here. If you have missions trip experience, medical missions, or even regular missions, it's a conversation piece. It's something that's different, but it definitely applies because you're interacting with people of different cultures. That's awesome. Now, some people have asked, do I put like the fact that I was a nanny on here, or I was a head lifeguard at a pool for 4 summers? Do I put that on here? You could if you want. If you feel that it serves your purpose. The nannying thing would totally work for pediatrics, and that would be a great thing. Again, you don't want to beef it up too much. You want to say, I provided childcare for summers from, for 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day or whatever it was, managing all aspects of the children's day. That would be fine, but don't feel like you have to make it sound more than it was. I mean, a nannying job is a nannying job. A head lifeguard job is a head lifeguard job. So definitely want to keep it objective, not subjective, and start with your medical experience first and move on down from there. Now, if you only have one thing, no big deal, totally fine, because your rotation section actually is going to take up some space, so your experience won't be abnormal. You can also, I guess I should also add, you can put, like if you were a TA, you were a lab TA or something in college, that works too. Just you want to get certain points across. If it's not medical specific, you can still look at customer service. You can still look at working collaboratively together with groups of people. Maybe I had a friend who actually had a job in loss prevention at Best Buy, which, totally not medical, but he constantly had to intervene when people were trying to shoplift and stuff like that, and he had to talk them down from these situations. He had to calm people down, and it was like crisis management. And he put that on his resume because it's a conversation piece, and what a great skill to have that you've handled people in intense situations, which translates perfectly into being a good PA. All right, now moving on, we've got affiliations. And honestly, I should probably say affiliations and certifications. So if you are affiliated with the AAPA or your state PA board, maybe you're on a nonprofit board, maybe you had a leadership position in PA school, those are all affiliations that you want to put on here. It just shows that you're involved. It shows that you're active. Especially leadership positions are great. Now it doesn't have to be limited to PA school. If you were involved in student government in college, by all means, put that on here. That shows that you take the initiative to go up and have an additional position, a leadership position, and that you've had experience in the past leading people. Because after all, a PA position is a leadership position. It's a provider role where we've got people that might be reporting to us and we're giving directions to other people for orders or for whatever it might be. So that is all great experience. Now, that's affiliations, and then we also have certifications. So if you have your BLS, your ACLS, your EMT license, whatever it might be that you have, go ahead and put that on here too. It shows that you've dedicated yourself to getting those certifications. It shows that the employer will not have to provide you with those certifications if it's BLS or ACLS, and it can be a topic for conversation as well. Now, if you want to do the personal information or something like that, that's fine. I did on my initial resume. I put that I was married to Jana, my wife, and that I had 2 kids at the time. And I put some of my interests on there because I thought it would help differentiate me against other people that were graduating, just because I was a family guy. So I'm not out partying on the weekends. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I thought it would help my chances. I thought it kind of helped paint the picture of who I was. A couple last things about the resume. You can definitely find some awesome examples on Google. So if you go to Google Images and you search for resume examples or modern resume examples or contemporary resume examples, something like that, you will find a ton of different examples. And some of them are watermarked, some of them are for places that are advertising their resume services, but just take a screenshot of them or download the picture and just recreate it. You can recreate most of these in Word. Another thing too is avoid the pre-made resume templates in Microsoft Word or Google Docs or something like that, because everyone's seen it or they will likely see other ones. You want yours to stand out, whether it's by layout or design. And lastly, don't be afraid to look at Google Fonts. Go to Google free fonts and find some different fonts that aren't normally part of the standard package, so that it pops, so that it stands out. It just gives you a little extra design element to it that you might not have otherwise. So there you go. That's your resume. That's your CV, your curriculum vitae. Now, if you have other things on there, if you did publish papers in college or you have other information that you want to put on there, go ahead and do it. Like I said, if it's more than 2 pages, no, don't make it more than 2 pages. If it's more than 1 page, but it's all quality information, by all means, put it in there. It's okay to flip it over to the backside, no big deal. But if you can keep it to 1, it's just more efficient for you. Because if you don't print it double-sided and you've got 2 sheets of paper, it's going to be hard, number 1, for you to keep track of everything. It's going to be hard for the person you're giving it to keep track of it as well. All right? So last part about resumes here. Make sure that you have it laid out in some kind of style, whether it's contemporary or traditional or something like that. Make sure that you pick a nice style that looks nice to the eyes, and then you keep that style consistent throughout. Don't just go in and open up a Word document and have whatever the default font is and fill it out in that. Definitely spend some time with the layout and then save it as a PDF. Do not save it only as a Word document, because if you email this to somebody, I promise you, it doesn't matter how good of a job you did, the formatting will be completely screwed up when you send it. So save it as a PDF so it looks nice, that it opens up nice, and all is well. Now, if you're going to print this too, you want to print it on a little bit heavier weight paper. So not just standard copier paper. I think that's 20-pound copier paper. Get 24 or even 28-pound. I don't even know if that's a thing. I know 24 is, but a little bit thicker paper. Sometimes they call it executive weight. I wouldn't go so heavy as cardstock, but the person at the local print shop, Kinko or FedEx office, I guess it's called, can help you pick out some paper. You can have a color to it or something if you want, although it's not really necessary. I think like a white or a gray is the most subtle but official looking resume. One thing I would warn you against too is please don't spray any scent on it. I got one resume that I don't know what was going on with it, but it smelled like flowers. It smelled like my grandma's bathroom, and it wouldn't come off my hands. And when I got home, my wife was like, "Why do you smell like a grandma's bathroom?" So don't do that. I'm not sure what they were going for. They, needless to say, did not get an interview. So good effort, but a little misguided. All right, moving on to the cover letter. Now, this is a spot where we can have a little bit more fun. I really, really think cover letters can make a huge difference, especially, be honest with yourself. You're a new graduate. You're graduating school and entering a job market with a bunch of other graduates. You're all kind of in the same boat. You've had the same training. You've taken the same test. So how do you separate yourself? And this is one spot that you can do it. The cover letter is almost like your personal essay was in applying to PA school, where you've got your application, you've taken all the prerequisites like everyone else, but your essay is the first opportunity you have to show them some personality. My first job was a direct result of my cover letter. And I asked the office manager later on, I said, what differentiated me from everyone else? And she said, your cover letter. She honestly said that. And here's why. This is a embarrassing story, but I'm happy to share it with you because it serves a good purpose. So in February of my rotation year, I graduated in May. In February of my rotation year, there was a general surgery job open in town, and I applied for it. Now, I had been on a rotation right around that time in the same building as this office, and I knew it was on the second floor, and it was it had a very kind of generic surgery office name. Okay, and on that rotation, I had interacted with the surgeons at this office, and I thought, this is perfect. I've got my in. Like, I'm just going to talk about that, and they'll remember me. So I wrote about how great of surgeons these surgeons were, and how I did cases with them alongside with so and so, and we did a joint consultation together, and how I'd love to be part of their team and stuff like that. So I sent it off. I hoped for the best, and I get a letter back that says, thank you for your interest in our position. However, we've filled the spot. And it was from a different surgical practice. And I thought, that's weird. So I look at it, and the address was the same, but the suite number was different. And the name of the practice was extremely similar to the one I thought I was applying to. So I wrote a cover letter praising the surgeons in an office that was the competitor of who received my letter. Does that make sense? So we've got two surgeons' offices with very similar names across the hall from each other, directly competing with each other, and I just wrote praises about the competitor's office in my cover letter. And I thought, oh my goodness, well, there goes that. That's done. So as graduation gets closer, I see a job posting for this same office, the original office I applied to. So I wrote another cover letter, and I pretended like nothing happened. So I wrote the letter, and I said, hey, this PA Tim says you're a great place to work. I would really love working for you. And then I put a little joke in there where I said, my wife and I are terrible at ironing, and I don't want to spend my career ironing dress shirts, so I'd really like to wear scrubs, or something along those lines. It was just a little quick one-liner thing at the end, and then I signed it. So I got an interview, and so I went to the interview, and I had a great conversation. I ended up getting hired. So after I got hired, I thought, I should ask if they remember that moron who applied to the wrong place. And so I went in, and we were talking about the cover letter, and I was like, hey, so it was the cover letter. And she's like, yeah, your cover letter was awesome. And I said, oh, what was it? And she's like, I love the humor that you put in it. And I love the fact that you reapplied after you screwed it up a couple months ago. And I was mortified that she remembered who I was. She's like, I kept it. I totally kept it at my desk because it made us laugh so hard that when we saw your name come across again and you were willing to try it again, that was all we needed to know that we needed to meet this guy. So the cover letter makes a big difference. I wouldn't recommend you screw it up on purpose because that was pretty embarrassing, but definitely don't be afraid to put a little bit of humor into your cover letter and show a little bit of personality. Now, you still have to keep it professional and things like that. So here's how I would set up a cover letter if I was writing one today. It's still a business letter, right? So you remember how to address a business letter. Put it on your letterhead. So take your heading that you made for your resume and put that on a fresh document and use it as a letterhead, so to speak. I just did air quotes in the air if you can see that, which you can, of course. So you've got letterhead, the name, address, phone number, or actually name, address of the practice that you're applying to. And then you need to say, dear, and you need to put a name in here. Don't say to whom it may concern. Even if it's out of town, even if it's just a practice application that you're putting in, you need to find a person's name. So take 5 seconds, call the office and say, hey, I'm going to send a resume to you. Who is the office manager? Or who should I address it to? So that way it doesn't say to whom it may concern. It would say, dear Jody or dear Miss Olson, and then go into your letter. All right. So the first thing I would do is personalize it with some sort of warm introduction. Do you know a PA in their current office? Do you know someone that's worked with them? Do you know a former patient of theirs? Is there some connection that you can make where it's not just a cold call, but it's someone that maybe even introduced you to the job opening itself, that, like I did, Tim says you're a great practice to work for and that you're looking for a motivated PA. So there you go. Make it a warm introduction and, talk for a sentence or two about that, and then explain why you're applying. And again, this isn't a place to puff up and be like, I've got incredible surgical skills and you're going to be amazed at how great I am. You need to be real and just say, I went to PA school so that I could blank. Is that work dermatology? Is that work peds? Is that work family practice? Whatever it is, say, just be real with them. Just say, I went to school so that I could work in a practice like yours that makes a difference in their patients' lives. And don't be afraid to, be honest. One resume that I read from a new graduate was very actually smart because he said, my least favorite rotation was internal medicine. And while I was on rotation with them, I couldn't help but get sidetracked reading every operative note I could find. I was like, oh, that's actually a very good illustration of the fact that they love surgery. So be honest, just be real, be down to earth, be approachable, be personable, and it's all good. And again, don't be afraid to have a little bit of humor. Like the whole my wife and I can't iron thing, totally true. If I ever see you, I can guarantee just the front of my shirt is ironed and I'm going to be wearing a jacket so that the sleeves and the back are covered. So there you go. So that's cover letter writing. Not crazy, nothing earth-shattering about it. It doesn't have to be long, but just make some sort of warm introduction, show why you want to apply for the job and why you think you should get an interview. And then, finish it up with, just a heartfelt thanks for their time because they're going to read through it and they're going to make a decision based on it. So, keep it short, keep it to the point, and it's all good. Print it on that same paper as your resume paper and package them together. One last thing, if you are, you've got your cover letter and you've got your resume, if you get an interview, and we're going to have a whole episode about interviews here shortly, but print some references with name, address, phone number, and email of like 3 or 4 people that you could call on. So whether it's a preceptor or fellow PAs or maybe faculty at your school that would serve as a reference, that would be awesome. You need to be prepared with that. So if you're going to print it on, let's say, gray paper, your resume and your cover letter, print those references on there too, so it's kind of a cohesive theme, okay? It's almost like your brand. All right, does that sound good? Hey guys, I hope this has been informative. I hope you're not asleep. This is so important because a good resume can make a big difference. A good cover letter can make a difference. If you have a bad one of either, it is going to hurt your chances, I promise you. So as much as you want to get into the job and get your white coat on and put your stethoscope on and go see patients, you have to get the job first. So don't underestimate the resume. One of the best pieces of advice I got in my resume writing was put it together and then walk away. So it's just like writing an essay. Put it together and then walk away for 2 or 3 days and then come back and see how it looks. So don't feel like you can sit down and get this done in 20 minutes. This is a week-long process that you need to devote to this, and I promise you it will pay off in the end. All right, gang, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you can use some of this information. Definitely head on over to the website at pastartup.co/episode 3. And you can find the show notes for this episode. You can also go to pastartup.co/resume, and you can find all these resources for resumes and cover letter writing. As always, guys, right before we go, I want to ask for the favor of you going to iTunes and leaving a rating and review. It helps other people find us. It helps us continue to grow. And those reviews help give me some love that helps me keep going and make more episodes for you, helps keep the motivation up. Also, subscribe to the podcast so that we can deliver new episodes down to your device every time we release. And we're going to have a Q&A episode coming up. I've got some great questions that have come in so far. So if you could please ask me anything. Tell me where you're at in the process. Tell me what questions you have. What are you confused about? Questions at pastartup.co, and I can't wait to look forward to that. So I hope all's well. For those of you who are starting rotation soon, get these resumes ready and get ready to just crush it out there. For those of you who are graduating soon, have these resumes ready, get ready to write some cover letters, and let me know how you do. Shoot me an email, chris@pastartup.co. Let me know if the tips helped. You can head on over to the show notes as well, pastartup.co/episode 3, and leave a comment over there too, so other people can learn and grow from this as well. All right, guys. Hey, take care. We'll see you next time on the PA Startup Podcast. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. Oh no, I have my wife's keys and she's got to go. I'll be right back.